then unsupervised FSD in the US this year in many cities, but nationwide next year. And hopefully we have unsupervised FSD in most countries by the end of next year.
So hopefully supervised FSD in most countries by the end of next year. I think China will. He gave a detailed description that I didn't include in the video of what's going on in China, and I think they'll solve that. It sounds like they're making progress on that. There's a variety of other countries. I'm not sure which countries are difficult and which countries are easy. I'm in Thailand. My sense is that Thailand could be difficult. Maybe Malaysia and Vietnam are easier. I don't think Tesla's operating in Vietnam, but Tesla's operating in Malaysia. I don't know which countries he's talking about. I don't know how easy Japan will be. He described Europe as difficult, so I don't think it's going to happen in Europe by the end of next year. So I'm not sure which countries he's referring to. But I think North America and China are the two biggest markets. So if you could just get North America and China, you got a lot. And then everybody else looks like idiots for not saying yes.
Will come from Adam Jonas at Morgan Stanley.
Thanks, everybody. So Elon, you've said in the past about LiDAR, that for AVs at least, that LiDAR is a crutch, a fool's errand. I think you even told me once, even if it was free, you'd say you wouldn't use it. You still feel that way?
Yes.
How does this guy ask the dumbest question on earth? It's working with cameras. Are you paying attention at all? They don't need LiDAR. I don't understand how Adam Jonas is this big figure. They don't need LiDAR. They've demonstrated they don't need LiDAR. Just a stupid question.
Care to elaborate, or just I have another question?
Look, we even have a radar in the car and we turned it off.
I got it. All right. So you're still, yeah. People think you're crazy, but for not
look. I mean, obviously humans drive without shooting lasers out of their eyes. I mean, unless you're Superman, but like humans drive just with passive visual. Humans drive with eyes and a neural net and a brain neural net. So sort of biological, so the digital equivalent of eyes and a brain are cameras and digital neural nets, or AI. That's the entire road system was designed for passive optical neural nets. That's how the whole road system was not designed, and what everyone is expecting that's how we expect other cars to behave. So therefore, that is very obviously the solution for full self-driving as a generalized solution for full self-driving, as opposed to the very specific, neighborhood by neighborhood solution, which is very difficult to maintain, which is what our competitors are doing.
I mean, LiDAR doesn't work in the fog, guys.
LiDAR has a lot of issues. If I thought it was the right solution for cars, I would do that, but it isn't.
Yeah. All right. Just as a follow-up, at CES, you said, I'm paraphrasing, that any AI will be able to do any cognitive task not involving atoms within the next 3 or 4 years. And that would imply, Elon, that before the end of President Trump's term in office, that AI would be moving pretty damn quickly into the physical world, into the world of photons and atoms. And I'm thinking, given your work with the administration, how confident are you that the U.S. will have the manufacturing and the supply base to make good on your excitement about physical AI by the latter this decade? We seem pretty vulnerable right now. I've seen you tweeting about, Xing, excuse me, Elon, about China. Freudian slip, about China making more drones in a day than the U.S. makes in a year, and all the entanglement of the supply. So what has to happen in the U.S. to make that possible? What's your message, and what can you do about it, and what's relevant for Tesla shareholders?
Not a bad question, but if you follow Tesla, they have a logistics team, that they're constantly working on improving their supply chain and securing their supply chain. This was covered, I think, at length at Investor Day. I think Elon gives a decent answer here, but it's just again, if you knew the company, you wouldn't ask that question. They're much I can't believe you're not asking, what chip are you going to replace hardware 3 with? That would be a question that people would want to know. What's the battery supply chain problem? Why is there a battery constraint with Megapack Powerwall on the cars? Can you give us some color on the battery constraint? Instead, you ask LiDAR, which has been beaten to death. And then, the supply chain is not a bad question, but they've covered it on Investor Day in depth. We'll give Elon a shot.
Well, at Tesla, obviously, we think manufacturing is cool. SpaceX, we think manufacturing is cool. but in general, for talented Americans, they need to beyond my companies, beyond me and the people and my teams here. In general, we need to make manufacturing cool again in America. I honestly think people should move from like law and finance into manufacturing. That's my honest opinion. This is both a compliment and a criticism. We have too much talent in law and finance in America, and there should be more of that talent in manufacturing. I mean, at Tesla, we're making sure that we can continue to manufacture our stuff, even in the event of geopolitical tensions rising to very high levels.
At the end, he sort of addressed that point. We're making sure we have what we need. You got Elon off on tangents about there's too many people studying finance and engineering, make manufacturing cool again. That wasn't the question. The question was, how do you make sure you have an adequate supply chain? And the answer was answered at Investor Day. That they have a whole team that's working, 2 years in advance to make sure that they know where their supply is coming from, and that they have backups in case there's a problem with the supply.
From Pierre Ferragu at New Street.
I have a question, Elon, on deploying like robotaxis in June in Austin. So that's great news. And I was wondering if it means I can, drive down to Austin in June and try unsupervised by myself with my car,
Yeah.
or it's going to be more like your fleet testing it.
I thought that was a great question from Pierre Ferragu. When you start up this robotaxi trial in Austin, can I bring my car down and put it in the fleet? The answer is no. As Elon's going to explain, it's going to be company-owned cars. Very good question. I don't know how important the question is, but it's the kind of question a lot of Tesla owners want to know.
It'll be our fleet testing it. That's our sort of toe in the water. We'll be scrutinizing it very carefully, make sure it's not something we missed. But it will be, autonomous ride hailing for money in Austin in June, as swiftly as possible other cities in America. And I expect us to be operating, doing unsupervised activity with our internal fleet in several cities by the end of the year. It's probably next year when people are able to add or subtract their car from the fleet.
So Elon goes on with an explanation of what that means, but plain and simple, if you own a Tesla, you have FSD, you press a button on your app and your car goes out and makes you money. And that part of it will not be in 2025. That part of it will probably be in 2026. So at first, they're going to test and make sure that the fleet is working, that the robotaxi system is working in multiple cities using Tesla-owned cars. And sometime in 2026, they'll flick the switch and you'll be able to put your car in the fleet and make money. Like he used the Airbnb example. You put your house in inventory, you put your apartment or room in inventory, and now you're able to service the Airbnb customer base. You'll be able to put your car in the Tesla robotaxi fleet and service the Tesla robotaxi customer base in 2026, not 2025.
And a lot of it is, it's not like we're not splitting the atom here. It's just a bunch of work that needs to be done to make sure the whole thing works efficiently, that people can order the car. It comes, it's the right spot, does exactly the right thing. All the payment systems work, the billing works.
But then, so my follow-up question would be, I have a Tesla, I have FSD, and I have to keep my eyes on the road all the time. It's super boring because I don't really need to intervene anymore. And but the really annoying thing is that I can't just check my emails. And so, are you working also on introducing, like a kind of like free unsupervised where I could be eyes off and I would be able to check my email and would just need to, with a 5-second notice, have to go back and keep an eye on what's happening? Or is that something you're working on as well? Because it feels so close with V13 that I wonder if it's something we could expect for this year. It's very selfish.
So that's another, and Pierre asks great questions. I don't know how much this is an investor question as opposed to a customer question. Same thing with the other one. When they have unsupervised FSD, you will be able to let your car drive and you will not have to pay attention. And they'll go into detail. I think the short answer is it's coming.
Yes. We need to be very confident that the probability of injury is low before we allow people to check their email and text messages. In fact, right now we're in this perverse situation, which you may have encountered yourself, where people will actually go to manual driving to check their text messages.
Yep.
So the computer doesn't yell at them, and then put it back on autonomous mode once they've checked the text messages, which is obviously less safe, significantly less safe than just letting people check their text once in a while without the computer yelling at them.
Yeah,
But we just want to be cautious about that at the advent of that. We're in this sort of, neither here nor there, but just for, I mean, I think it's not for many months longer. But yeah, we're in this perverse situation where people will turn the car off autopilot so the computer doesn't yell at them, check their text messages while steering the car with their knee and not looking out the window.
and here, like Elon said, right? If you have any problems with the system, and when people are not looking, that is a dangerous thing, and that's what we're trying to avoid. It's the capability is getting there, but it's not fully there. That's why he was using the term of dipping our toe in the water, then getting comfortable, then keep going.
Anyway, it's not far off, but we want to prove to ourselves, prove to ourselves, and obviously prove to regulators that the car is unequivocally safer in autonomous mode than not, and we're not far off. So this is like low single-digit months.
So low single-digit months, 3-4 months until that becomes available. That's what I hear. I mean, I think it's around the same time, June, that they have the unsupervised robotaxi network running. They will allow people to run unsupervised. And I personally have had that experience many times, that I'm driving my car using FSD, and then I want to do something that I know the car doesn't want me to do on FSD. I take the car out of FSD, and then I look at my phone. The way FSD is designed, it punishes you for doing something. So you end up driving without the car driving the car, which is, like you're not paying attention, you're holding the wheel, and that's clearly less safe than letting the car drive and you check your text messages. But that's how the system works, and I think that's driven primarily by regulators, not by Tesla.
Be coming from Dan Levi at Barclays.
Elon, you've talked about the need for proliferation of sustainable transport in the past as part of sort of broader push to sustainable energy. We've heard a lot about President Trump's plans to reverse the EV mandate, and I think there's a view that given regulation is a driver of EV uptake, this could slow EV uptake in the U.S. What would be your view on the right policy in the U.S., given your comments in the past of the need to push for sustainable transport?
I just want to start off, I don't think Elon says what I'm going to say, which is no, regulation is not a driver of the adoption of electric vehicles. What's a driver of the adoption of electric vehicles is electric vehicles being better than gas cars. A Tesla is better than any gas car. I personally see BYD Atto 3 and BYD Dolphin as better cars as city cars than any gas car, and they're very popular here in Thailand, and China and Norway. The electric vehicles are killing it in places that don't get in their way. It's not that there's some regulatory hurdle that makes them attractive, it's that they're actually better. And if you make an electric vehicle that's not better than a gas car, it's not going to sell. But if you make an electric vehicle that's better, and it's less expensive, and it is lower cost of ownership, and you don't have to go to a smelly gas station, you just plug in at home, there's all these advantages to electric cars. In the case of Tesla, it drives itself and you're safer. The idea that there's some sort of regulatory drive that makes people buy the cars, it's not what's making people buy the cars.
At this point, I think that sustainable transport is inevitable. I'm highly confident that all transport will be autonomous electric, including aircraft, and that it can't be stopped any more than one could have stopped the advent of the external combustion engine, the steam engine, or one could have stopped the advent of the internal combustion engine. Like even if you've been the biggest horse advocate on earth, horses are the way, not these newfangled automobiles. You can't stop the advent of the automobile. It's going to happen, and you can't stop the advent of electric cars. It's going to happen. The only thing holding back electric cars was range, and that is a solved problem.
That's interesting, because I continue to hear people complaining about range in EVs, and they're ignoring the fact that the overwhelming majority of people drive less than 100 miles a day. So if you have a car with 250 miles of range, it's enough. And you get the individuals who have, 1% of the population, like, well, I like to tow 10,000 pounds to go 400 miles, once a week. Well, you're very unusual. We don't need to solve that problem today to advance electric vehicles. We'll get there, right? But for the vast majority of drivers who are driving less than 100 miles a day, even less than 200 miles a day, which is almost everybody, problem solved. And then you have the supercharger network, which solves the problem for people who don't fit into that category.
In the past, Elon, you had made a comment that you'd be willing to sell cars at effectively no margin to get the cars out there. And there's a comment in the release today of the rate of acceleration of autonomy efforts does impact volume growth. So perhaps you could just talk about, with your efforts on FSD, how we should think about your desire to put more vehicles out in the market to take advantage of your tech advances.
This is an example of a guy who didn't listen to earlier in the call where they said we're constrained by battery supply. It's not that they're not selling cars at near zero margin in order to get more cars out there. They can't manufacture enough cars because they don't have enough batteries.
So I'm not sure I understand the question. But we have a lot of cars. I mean, we've got millions of cars out there.
So is your question, Dan, that how do we marry our future growth aspects with FSD?
Yeah, more so just how much more aggressively you would be willing to sell your cars versus in light of your improvements on FSD.
Well, right now the constraint we're trying to solve is battery production as opposed to demand. So now Q1 we've got this massive factory retooling for the new Model Y, for example, that obviously has a short-term impact on output. But the problem we're wrestling with, in fact, we're talking that the executive team and I were talking about just before this call was how we've got to figure out how to increase total gigawatt hours of battery production this year, one way or another. That's the constraint on our output.
I think that's the end of the call, and I think that covers the critical details. And this critical point here that the thing that's the hurdle that Tesla is facing that we didn't get because the analyst didn't ask the right questions, we didn't really get this is Tesla is struggling to get enough batteries. And I think there was some other moment where Elon talked about we've got batteries for Powerwall and Megapack, and we've got batteries for cars. And if we shift more batteries into cars, we make less Megapacks. If we make more Megapacks, we make less cars. It's about getting more batteries. That's the challenge that they're. I don't understand what happened, and this is why I wish we had better questions. What happened that led to the battery constraint? Is it that in the United States, they're trying not to use Chinese LFP batteries because of the Inflation Reduction Act or something else, and then they're just not getting enough nickel-based batteries from Panasonic? But Megapack is about to be produced in China, but Megapacks being produced in Lathrop are using Chinese batteries. Is there so much demand from Chinese EV manufacturers that it's hard to get LFP batteries from Chinese battery manufacturers? Did Chinese battery manufacturers reduce their production because they weren't making enough money? We didn't get an answer to this question, and it was because it wasn't asked correctly. Anyway, I think there was a great call. I'm super optimistic about the future. We are hearing great things, and look forward to massive change in Tesla, the company, as Robotaxi network goes live in June or perhaps July, and a lot of other great things happening. Optimus going into small scale production by the end of the year. Unsupervised FSD spreading around the United States in 2025 and then covering the entire United States and Canada in 2026. Great things happening that are going to, be great for the company, great for investors, great for consumers, and great for the world as the world becomes a safer place with less dependence on fossil fuels. Thank you so much for watching. Please check out the t-shirts at elonbits.com. Please support me as a subscriber on the X platform, as a YouTube channel member, on the Daily Lie, or on Patreon. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for watching this video. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.